You like waivers? I like waivers. We're going to stay on top of that waiver wire every single weekend. We're going to stay one step ahead of our league mates, one step ahead of our competition. We're always on the search for that next waiver wire stud that can be an integral part of our team for the rest of the season. We're going to go over a bunch of guys that are popping off right now, just like this sty is about to pop off my fucking eyeball, go from a pimple to this. Just dealt a tough hand the last couple weeks for the hygiene. But for those of you who don't know me, I'm Chris, and welcome to Number 2 Sports. And sty or not, I still have one of the silkiest mini hoop jumpers in all of YouTube. Okay, first up on the list, we got Vince Williams Jr. from the Memphis Grizzlies. So it's another blow to a tough Memphis season so far, but even tougher for fantasy managers who used an early draft pick on Ja Morant. With his recent calf injury, it's now thrusted Vince Williams Jr. into this starting role, operating as the lead dog out of the backcourt that is just being gutted by injuries and also still hurting from the departure of Desmond Bane. Vince has been doing his best Steve Nash impersonation lately, handing out 15 dimes on Thursday. Now, Vince definitely had some gimme assists in there, as I like to call them. The easy kickouts to a contested three where your teammate just bangs home a deep shot or swinging the ball on the perimeter and your guy just beats him one-on-one off the dribble, or a nice ETO off the baseline that coach drew up. So no real plus in the shot creation, just a regular basketball play. But there were a bunch of nice lobs that he threw to Edie, entry passes over the top, or kickouts just right in the shooting pocket, right in the money, that were definitely a plus in the shot creation department. Besides looking like white chocolate out there, Vince had a putrid night from the field, shooting 2 of 7 from the floor, a trend we've already seen in his short NBA career, shooting 40% last year and 44% the year prior. I am hopeful that he can get in a little groove though, now that he's at his starter, because predominantly he's always came off the bench or just in garbage time really, and sometimes you just don't have the same focus or same preparation as you would starting, sitting on the bench cold. I've always said it in basketball. It is so hard coming into the game cold that you've been sitting for 10, 12 minutes and you're just expected to make a shot immediately. Like first trip down the court, you get a kick out three and you're just expected to hit it. I always said it was one of the hardest things because really, if you're in that role, you don't get many opportunities. So there's even more pressure to hit that shot ice cold. I'm a big believer of being able to get into the game, being able to get into the flow of the game with decent amount of minutes just helps everything, every aspect of your game and what you bring to the court. Now, who knows if that actually happens with Vince? Maybe he is just terrible at shooting, but we'll see. The one downside with Vince Carter is I'm not really sure what his outlook will look like rest of the season, especially when Ja gets back, but Memphis is reeling right now. Morant's situation is anything but stable. Memphis needs playmakers. Maybe he can carve out a large enough role to still be useful. It remains to be seen, but in the meantime, Williams needs to be rostered everywhere in 12-team leagues. We can deal with Morant's return when we cross that bridge. Honestly, Vince kind of reminds me of Isaiah Collier, but with like a safer path to reliable minutes and usage. Okay, next up we got Peyton Watson off the Denver Nuggets. Now I talked about Peyton Watson as a deep league ad about a couple weeks ago in my prior waiver wire video. Now he's about to get a lot more run, or he's set to get a lot more cardio in with the Christian Braun injury. Now I do think this injury still helps out Cameron Johnson the most, regardless of what other people say about that, but this definitely bumps up Watson in the pecking order. Now before we prematurely bust here, looking at his last game and his game logs, this will not be the norm going forward. Now, the Pelicans are just absolutely atrocious on the defensive end. They're bottom 5 in practically all defensive categories. Watson just had a heater of a night, splashing home 5 threes and just getting a ton of easy looks. What we should expect from him going forward is being a plus in the stock categories. The guy can just flat out jump out of the gym. He can out jump anybody. He has hustle stats, rebounds, hopefully a sprinkle of points, and hopefully decent percentages. Watson isn't going to blow you away on a nightly basis, even though some guys might like that. But he's a solid end of the rotation guy in 12-team leagues that just needs to be added in light of this explosive game that he just had just to see if some of this sticks and see if some of this is real. Next up, we'll go with the Great White Hope, Mr. TJ McConnell. Now, I assume TJ was drafted in a vast majority of leagues, then was dropped due to his injury. Well, TJ has been back and has really done shit all. I called him the White Mamba in one of my preseason videos for his scoring prowess and will to just get to his spot and produce when given the opportunity, and disrespected one of the all-time greats, Brian Scalabrine, in the process. TJ has just not lived up to that hype this season, albeit a limited sample size so far. Now, besides the ridiculously small sample size, 5 games to be exact, what I think's happening is he's just being brought along ever so slowly. The Pacers are going to absolutely tank this year, get a top pick, regroup next year with Hallie back and healthy, and go from there. I expect his minutes to keep climbing slowly, and if it can ever get to that 25 plus minute per mark, he will be very useful for fantasy going forward, and he has been very useful for fantasy in the past when given that type of minutes and usage. TJ is a stud minute contributor when healthy. Like, look at his last game log, 14, 6, and 8 with 2 threes was done in only 14 minutes. Some guys take 30 plus to not even sniff close to that. So you can see why I get so excited thinking about the potential that TJ could have if you can add an extra 10 to 15 minutes on his line per night. But being a realist, I know it just might not happen for him. The Pacers is doing all sorts of weird things with the rotations, but I just love chasing upside and the hope to grab a season-long producer off the wire for free. I love that shit, so keep your eye on him, and if his minutes do pick up, go and get him. Maybe I'm biased as TJ's game is just like a literal carbon copy of what my game was and is, and it's just a nice reminder that undersized white boys can still hang with the big boys in the NBA and make a career for themselves. Next up, we got Colin Gillespie, and if you thought that I was going to stop talking about undersized white dudes, you are dead wrong. Gillespie is getting a real look, a real nice key bump with injuries to Green and Allen, getting over 10 shots per game, the last 2 hitting threes. His rebounding is nice for the guard position, an undersized guard. Give me those nice long boards outside the key, and he's acting as a nice second facilitator alongside Devin Booker. Gillespie has never really had a chance to showcase himself in the NBA. His minutes hovered around 14 minutes per game last year and then only 9 minutes per game in his rookie season. Well, he's getting his chance now and he's playing really solid basketball. Gillespie just knows his shots and where to get them. He has a great creation ratio and passer rating, and really his deflections are in the 96th percentile per 36 at 4.5, so the man just knows how to get his hands on a pair of balls, and he should continue to improve in the steal department as the season goes on. So in the short term, I think Gillespie is a great add as long as he's getting this much run. For the rest of the season, it could get really murky when Allen and Green are back in the fold, and I assume his minutes and usage will take a massive hit when that happens, but I haven't heard anything on Allen's quad injury, and Green will be out at least a few more weeks. So let's keep riding Gillespie and make that be a decision that future you has to decide on later on. Okay, now I just quickly want to touch on some players that are injured right now with longer term injuries that could be floating around on your wire that I think you should pick up and stash on your IL spot if you have an open IL spot, because when they come back, I think they can be legit difference makers for fantasy basketball. Okay, first up, DeJounte Murray. Now, he probably was drafted at the end of your draft and stashed on the IL, but with all these injuries piling up, like every day there's someone going down, someone new, I bet at least in a lot of leagues, he probably can't be held on, especially with the Pelicans just looking so ass. Who knows how much they're really going to push him, how much they're going to let him go when he's healthy enough to return. So he could be floating around on your wire right now. And we all know what Murray is when he's healthy. He's easily a top 50 player. He's going to score, hit threes. He's going to rebound. He's going to play make. He's great in the steals department. His percentages can be so-so, and he's usually solid from the line. So yeah, easily a top 50 player in 9-cat all day long. So check your wire. If he's floating around right now and you miraculously do have an open IL spot, I do think he is going to come back this year, probably in the new year. And I do think he'll get at least a little bit of decent run, even though the Pelicans are going to be completely ass. I wouldn't expect him to play any of like back-to-back nights and stuff like that. And he'll definitely be brought along really slowly, but hopefully come in the new year and maybe into fantasy basketball playoffs, he can be a real difference maker for fantasy squads. Next up, same sort of thing. He was probably for sure drafted and stashed on an IL spot from the beginning of the year, but again, injuries are crazy, and that's Kyrie Irving. Now, we don't need to go into Kyrie at all, one of the best ball handlers of all time. He can score, pass, sprinkle in assists, hit threes, you name it, decent percentages. So yes, if Kyrie is out there and you have an open IL spot, go grab him. He could be huge in the second half. His situation is definitely a little bit more sketchy than Murray, personally, I think, because Dallas is in such a flux. They're going to be terrible too. I don't think they're going to want to push AD or Kyrie. I don't know what they're going to do, but just me personally, it feels like there's a way greater chance that Kyrie just gets shut down or like doesn't really ever get brought along compared to Murray. Now, maybe I'm wrong in that, but I don't know. That's just my gut feeling. What do you guys think down below? Who's going to have more of an impact in the second half of the year? DeJounte Murray or Kyrie Irving? This guy still might be on your fantasy manager's IL spot, depending how deep your league is and such like that, but that's Dylan Harper off the San Antonio Spurs. Now, Dylan was totally balling to start the year. He was balling right up to his injury, which sucked. I really liked his game. I like what he can bring to the table on a nightly basis. I know that backcourt in San Antonio is super crowded, but it looked like Harper was kind of edging himself into a nice little role there with a nice little usage package. I'm not sure how far along in his injury he is, but I think he's a very talented guy. I like the potential. I like the upside. Maybe he'll never get a big enough role when all three of those guys in San Antonio are healthy. But again, if you have an open IL spot, see what he looks like in the first 2 weeks, why not? Okay, and then last up, for sure, this guy's just not floating around on the wire, even though someone commented a couple weeks ago that they just picked him up for free, and that's Tyler Hero off the Miami Heat. This one will definitely be a trade. So again, if that fantasy manager is just getting cucked by injuries right now, like a lot of people are, you could definitely try and pry Tyler away for cheap, and that manager might just be desperate enough to accept it. Now, I know he's probably getting closer to a return that guy's not going to want to sell just before he gets to the jackpot, but you never know. Depending how desperate that manager is, float an offer out there. See what his take is, see how he values him, because I think Hero can be an absolute study who's set up coming into this year to be a usage monster on that team. I love his fantasy game. He's great, and I think he can be a real difference maker in the second half of the year. And then this one, again, will end with at least somebody who's probably floating around on the wire, and that's Kevin Porter Jr. Now, he's an absolute wild card. I'm not a huge fan of him. His skill set's fine. And again, Milwaukee had such a nice opportunity for him, as you're seeing with Ryan Rollins. Now, Rollins is absolutely balling, and I don't think Kevin Porter Jr. is just going to walk back into there and take all that away from Rollins, because Rollins deserved that. He's played so well. He is very talented, and I don't think Doc's just going to completely just switch it just like that. What I think is going to happen is they're probably going to be in some sort of split, and most likely it'll make them both not very attractive assets for 12-team leagues. But who knows what happens? Doc Rivers could do absolutely anything. So again, it's an absolute wild card. Maybe the second Kevin Porter Jr. is back, Doc just benches Rollins like he didn't do anything the last month and a half. I have no idea. You have no idea. So why not throw a lottery ticket on the IL? No harm, no foul. Okay, let's try a little news segment here. Let me know if you guys like it, want to see this in the weekly waiver wire videos going forward. But I know some people talked about it's like a schedule look ahead. So I'll kind of dive into the schedule here. Now, I know this coming up week's weird with Americans Thanksgiving on Thursday, so there's no games at all there. But if we bring up the schedule, look at it, there's two really bad schedules. So two schedules I classify as bad. So that's Orlando. So any fringe guys or injury replacement guys like Wendell Carter Jr. or De Silva will be tough plays for a 2-game week. I've also really been liking the play of Anthony Black. I almost included him in the main waiver wire section, but when Paulo returns, he might be too inconsistent, but still, he's somebody to keep your eye on for sure. And in cat leagues, he definitely can be stooped up now for steal needy teams. Thankfully, one of those games for Orlando does fall on a really light slate on Tuesday, so you won't have any issue if you have those fringe guys fitting him into your lineup for the first game of the week. And the other bad team is Washington, again with only 2 games, so all the fringe streamer guys like Carrington, Johnson, Whitmore probably don't really need to think about them this week. I'd still want to add and hold Koulibaly if he's floating around on your wire. I think he has some upside rest of season, or at least we need to see how it's going to play out and how it looks now that he's back. Also, I'm not going to go over every single team's schedule this week. I think that's just crazy work. I'm just picking some that I think are really bad, some that are average, and some that are good, and going to go from there. And also teams that just have a lot of waiver wire streaming options, because there's just some teams that there's like nobody available, or you never even thinking about picking a player up off that team. So for an average schedule next week, I got the Hornets. They don't play until Wednesday, but then they close the week out with a Friday, Saturday back-to-back and a follow-up on Monday. So LaMelo is for sure sitting out one of those back-to-backs, and Brendan Miller too. There's no way both of them are playing back-to-backs. So that'll give a bump to Sexton, the Nipple, and Miles Bridges on those nights. And then Miami gets a Monday, Wednesday, and closes with a Saturday. So there's maybe some Pele action. Every time I see Pele, I think of the soccer player. If you need a bump in threes and sprinkle of assists, Wiggins might not play. I think he's hurt. Same with Jovic. So Hakas is going to get a bump. Mitchell's going to get a bump. Ware's going to get a bump. So Golden State has an all right schedule. So if you need to streamer Pods or Moody's will get a bump in man games before the weekend, because they are one of the teams that play 2 before Thursday. And the only 4-game team this week that I think is just an average schedule is Phoenix, just because of the opponents. They have Houston, OKC, and Denver. Not ideal for fringe guys at all. A couple real tough defensive matchups in there. Okay, now we'll go to teams that I think have a good schedule. So Detroit, lots of stuff going on with the Pistons lately, with a lot of their guys hurt or missing games. Guys might be coming back from injury, Harris, Ivy, all that stuff, but they have a 4-game week with a streamer spot open on Sunday, which is always nice. Indiana, same sort of thing. They have a back-to-back Friday, Saturday. They might rest McConnell for one of those, so beware, but lots of guys you can grab off this team for a man games bump off the wire, and shouldn't have too big of an issue fitting them in your lineup. Milwaukee, you got Kyle Kuzma or Bobby Portis with Giannis out, and they closed up the week with a cakewalk matchup against Brooklyn. And then last up, New Orleans Pelicans. They have a pretty soft defensive schedule with Chicago, Memphis, and Golden State. And again, a lot of these guys you probably can find on the wire. Herbert Jones, maybe Jeremiah Fears is still floating around, even though he should definitely be added and kept for season long. Derek Queen, we've talked about a bunch. He needs to be added everywhere. Pelicans are set up to have a pretty good week coming up. So I don't know if anyone's going to watch that segment or if that's going to be useful to anyone at all, or I just wasted however long that was just talking. But let me know in the comments down below if you want me to go more in depth on this, cut it shorter, or this was just completely useless. It's not going to hurt my feelings. It's all right. Okay, now it's time for the recap, and to recap my prior waiver wire video from last week. So you want to make sure you check out this section, because there still could be some of these guys floating around on your wire that need to be on rosters, or if it was just a terrible week where I had some terrible picks, you could see myself get hit in the nuts, slam some beers, do whatever. And it could be funny. Okay, first up, we had Ace Bailey. And if we check out Ace Bailey's game logs, he had an absolute stinker in 10 minutes, but I'm 99% sure he was in a ton of foul trouble or fouled out. Next game, 13 points, 1 3, 1 rebound, 1 assist, 1 steal, 6 12 from the floor. That's money. And then the follow-up game, he hit 3 threes, 15 points, 2 rebounds, 3 assists, 3 steals, shooting 6-9, nice, from the floor. Again, like I talked about in that video, I do really like his game. I think he's going to get better as the season goes on, as he gets stronger. And again, he was a monster in college for the Stocks. So I'm seeing the steals pick up. I think it's only a matter of time before we start seeing him swatting shots left, right, and center. I still think Bailey is a great ad for 12-team leagues. Next up, we had Yegor Doyman. And again, what is this? With the first game, if we look at the game logs, had an absolute stinker. 5 points, 1 rebound, 5 assists. Second game, he was a lot better. 4 threes, 12 points, 3 rebounds, 4 assists, 1 steals. Only 40% from the floor and 4 turnovers, so that kind of sucked. And then his most recent game, 12 points, 2 threes, 6 rebounds, 5 assists, 1 steal, 1 block, while shooting 50% from the floor in 30 minutes. That's nice. I like his game. I like that he's improving. He's going to be a good facilitator in this league. He needs to be more aggressive with his shot. That Brooklyn Nets team does suck, so he's not going to get a lot of gimme assists either. Yegor is someone that I want to keep my eye on. I do want him in 12-team leagues. I think he might be a little too inconsistent for that right now, but he's someone you need to watch. Okay, we'll keep going with Mad Maxon. He had an absolute clunker in one game, but I had no idea what was going on. 19 minutes, only shot once, just completely zoned out, but the rest of it is nice. I like Christie. He still should be added everywhere in 12-team leagues. I think he has the potential to hold some rest of season value too. He just kind of fits with what the Mavericks are wanting to do. Again, rock solid guy in Max Christie. Go get him if he's still floating around right now. Next up, we had Brandon Williams. And again, like I said, when a starting point guard just becomes available like that, you just go and add him and worry about if his production is going to maintain or fall off later. And I'm looking at his game logs. He's not shooting the ball that well at all his last 2 games. 2 for 11 and 1 for 12. Like, what even is that? If I was blackout drunk playing, I still probably shoot better than that. But you can't complain about the assists. 12 assists, 4 assists in the last 2. He's stealing. He's consistently stealing the rock. I don't know what to tell you about the shooting. That's insane. But you still just hold on to him because the role and the usage and the attempts are nice, and just hope he figures it out. And next up, we had Derek Queen. I don't even need to show you the game logs. Everyone knows how big of a monster he is right now. He's just oozing with upside and talent. He could legit be a league-winning type of guy that we got off the waiver wire in the middle of November. And the last guy we had up was the bonus guy, Andre Drummond. Now, again, with Joel Embiid's needs being who knows what, if he's going to play, how much he's going to play, shut down, knee surgery again, I have no idea. He needs to be added because we know what he can do when he's getting a starter's role. He's going to be a monster on the glass, great field goal percentage. He'll score in double-digit points, swat some shots, you name it. If Embiid comes back and he starts stringing a bunch of games together and looks fine, then fine. We'll move on from someone else. But right now, Andre's too valuable to be left on the wire. But okay, this was super solid. I don't need to punch anything into my calculator. I liked all those picks. Yegor, again, could have been a little bit iffy for some leagues. He's could be more of like a watch list type guy, and that's okay. I get it, but there was a ton of good juice in this, especially Derek Queen. There is no punishment. No way. But all right, I think that's it for this waiver wire video. I appreciate you guys hanging out, liking this video, hyping this video. Make sure to subscribe if you aren't. I'll be trying to post 2 videos per week, always with a waiver wire video posted sometime on the weekend. If you haven't checked out my prior video about players that I'm panicking on, if you should panic on them too, please do it. It's a good video. And I hope you guys have a good rest of your weekend, week, day, night, wherever you are. And I'll see you guys real soon.